Hey, Nikita, good morning. Thanks for joining me on your Saturday. How's it going?
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's going good, man. What about you?
Oh, it's my pleasure. I mean, it's a big question because we'll get into this more, but we've known each other for 20 years or so now. We spoke the other day talking about this in general, and I still don't think we had a proper catch up, which we will we'll get to do at some point. But happy to have you on today. This is going to be a very familiar style, I think, of conversation for us because again, we know each other quite well. And before we get into your background, before we talk about what you're doing with Kash Sports Management, before we talk about your view of data in the context of sport, I wanted to give the audience just a couple sentences on the ideal outcome for today, so they know what to expect. And I just kind of alluded to it, though we're going to end up trying to help educate and inspire them in terms of athletes. I think the parents too, because with younger athletes who are developing to get to the elite level, often the parents are a part of that journey or the family is a part of that journey, whether they are close to the player or not, I guess geographically, because we know people move around. But we're going to do that through the lens of your experience at prep school, then to playing juniors, going to the pros, and even being a player coach in England, which I still just find to be very cool. And again, we'll talk through it through your lens, and then finish at the end with behind the data to learn about Nikita, away from sports, away from data. So how does that sound? Sound good?
Sounds good, man.
All right, sweet.
Let's do it.
So where do you want to start in terms of the backstory? Is Georgetown Prep usually the starting point, or give us a sense of what your background is, and that will help us. That will help us to get to today in terms of why you started Kash Sports Management and what you do.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Russia, in Moscow, and the most important thing is, my parents were always behind, me having a good education, and I think that's very important. And still thankful every day for that belief that they had and that mindset that they had. It wasn't just about sports every day. They obviously probably they would want me to play in NHL or something, but I think the aspect of training your mind as well was a big thing for them. And it helped me so because, I always went to a good school, my English was good. And, same thing for my brother. My older brother is 5 years older than I am, Igor. And he left to US when he was 18, I was about 13. He had a student exchange system with Moscow University, and he went to Colorado University. And so from there, obviously the lack of internet at the time, that was like 2000s, maybe even, like 1998 or something, when he left, or maybe 99. Obviously, there was lack of information about anything in US in terms of, college sports and high school sports, and that you can actually be a player and an athlete and you can get financial aid, scholarships, and all of that. So when he got there, yeah, he was trying to get me over there and get me an opportunity to play and be a student as well. And that's, he found Georgetown Prep. It's a very, very good private boys' school in DC, Washington, DC, in Bethesda area. And got in touch, in 2002. Yeah, after, doing all the very difficult English exams and everything, I got accepted. Got a full financial aid to go to prep school there, Georgetown Prep, and it wasn't a big hockey school, and it was a very, it's a very good and still very good educational school. I get to go there. 2 years there, obviously, you know, I wanted to be a hockey player still. After graduation, played at juniors in Walpole Stars, where you and I played together.
Yep.
That's where you and I met. And after that, after 1 year playing, I was being recruited, as you remember, by D1 schools and stuff. But like I said, I didn't have an advisor at the time at all, and I guess I was missing one class that was not credited to Division 1. That's what actually, yeah, I didn't clear the clearinghouse, and I found out about it like probably December of that year that you and I played in Walpole. That was the League EJHL. Remember that one, Eastern Junior Hockey League? But I did have D1 schools, UMass Amherst. Remember we went there. Uh, a bunch of like Merrimack. Colorado College. I spoke to them. There's a bunch of schools that were interested, but then once they found out, it was that's it. I remember Coach Jack Sweeney told me that, like you're missing a class, you can't get accepted. So yeah. So and that's when Division three school Norwich University stepped in. Coach Mike McShane and Coach Matson, started talking to me. I went for a visit, and that's where I got accepted. Played 4 years there, and then after graduating, well, actually not after graduating, after losing out my senior year in the playoffs to UMass Boston, I think I remember it was in overtime. I think like next day I called one of the scouts for Washington Capitals because the summer before my senior year, I was actually invited to their development camp. I sent the video to, I knew a couple of scouts through a very close friend of mine, got connected, and I sent them the video, and the scout responded was like, "Hey, I like the video. Would you like to come to development camp, which is for their drafted and college players? It's the camp for the drafted and college players." So I went there, and Coach Jared Bednar, who's the head coach of Colorado College right now, he was at that camp, and he liked me. And so they told me go back for your senior year, finish up, and then we'll keep in touch. After my last game, I gave a scout a call. I was like, "Hey, my season's over. Like, what do I do now?" And he told me, he's like, "Hey, Jared Bednar was actually asking about you. Like, give me a day or two, and we'll get in touch." And then, what do you know? 2 days later, Jared Bednar calls me and he's like, "Hey, would like to sign a contract. We want a player like yourself there." And there, I signed, left the school. Spoke to all the professors, and what do you know? We end up winning, the Kelly Cup, the first one of two of them. Yeah. So it was interesting transition. And then yeah, I played almost 8 years professionally. ECHL, AHL a little bit, American Hockey League, KHL for like half a season maybe or so, and then like you said in England, and then I finished back in ECHL.
Yeah, you have a amazing story, which I should have said at the start that we will get into again. Well, you covered off, and then we'll get into with like the why you started this, the work that you do. But you and I were also talking the other day about like all the resources that we probably didn't have when we were playing, call it 20 years ago in junior, even though there was still a lot of resource, but now it's just leveled up to a level that I actually can't comprehend because I haven't been in the game. But before we do that, I wanted to make a minor correction, I think, in terms of your memory of when we met. So you mentioned Igor. So you and I actually first met. It was very
Hmm.
short, very short. And we were separately invited, I think brought in by the
Yes,
same group
to Lincoln
for
Stars,
as
Lincoln
2004.
Stars.
Yeah, 2004. I think it was Blaine, Minnesota. Lincoln Stars training camp. And we won't go into the details because it doesn't matter. But you and I then ended up bunking together in the same hotel
Yes,
room.
that's true,
And that
man.
was like a 2 day thing, right? Very short camp, I think. I performed like terribly, very
Me
poorly.
too. Me too.
And I had said, I don't want to go to senior year of high school playing high school hockey in Massachusetts.
Hmm.
And so that group that helped me with getting to Lincoln was like, hey, we'll talk to some teams for you. So I guess they were acting almost in an advisory role, though I didn't quite comprehend it. Like the situation or relationship wasn't so clear. And I'll touch on that a little bit more later, though they were like, hey, you can go to Walpole. You're going to have to basically like walk on. I mean, the season had started. You're going to have to kind of like walk on through practices. And that's how that ended up happening, that I then got on that team. And then I'm like, I look in the locker, I'm like, oh, it's Nikita. Like this is an unreal sliding doors moment in terms of history. And I had mentioned this on a couple other episodes. I think the second one with Jacob, where he was talking about how he loved the team aspect of tennis at Michigan, even though it's an individual sport, and how like those relationships will always remain. And even though when we look back on our lives, like myself, yourself, others, you don't keep in touch with everybody. I mean, I think it's literally impossible to. Though it is true how you have those kind of, we'll call like special bond with people, even if you're there for a cup of coffee, right? Or half a season or what have you. And that is tie the bow off what I alluded to in the beginning of this will be a very familiar conversation because we've kind of been in touch, haven't seen each other since then, and I think people will find what I'm speaking to is true, that this will be like we're walking down the street having a cup of coffee. So, sorry, minor correction, though I think an
That's
important
so
piece of
true.
this.
You know what? And I remember that, but it was the timeline that switched. Now, for some reason, I thought maybe it was after EJHL or something, or maybe during the season or something. But now, as I remember, it was before. And yes, it was. I remember we went to a baseball game. Now I remember. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is timelines as we get. I mean, and you and I are about the same age. I've mentioned a few times I'll be 40 next year, and timelines as we get older get a little bit off. But I think the understanding the connection is the key thing, and that's what we try to do on Data in Sports is make the connections like across episodes to show people patterns,
Hmm.
and then like within episodes talking to people like in this case yourself with the past or the future or the present. So I wanted to tie that together and get into like your why. So I have a sense of why and
Hmm.
to rewind for a second, we have not talked about this, right? We have not talked about why you started it in
Hmm.
terms of like the actual why. Based on how you spoke to your background, I think people might guess because you dropped a couple hints there. Though, can you just give us the high level or highlights of like why you started Cash
Hmm.
Sports Management? And then what is it? It's like, what do you do?
So the reason why I started is I wanted to share my experience, obviously, and most of my clients are international clients, from Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Europe, and it's most of the countries for the players that lack of that opportunity and lack of opportunity of actually being a student athlete. And I say student athlete, and a lot of people say it, and obviously in US here is because first you're a student, then you're an athlete. And to all my clients, I say the same thing. When you come here, first you're a student, then you're an athlete. And because there, unfortunately, in the system, it doesn't work the same as here. There, at a certain level, you have to make a decision, which is I think, horrible decision. It's my opinion. I mean, maybe some people agree with me or not, but it's a horrible and difficult decision at their age and for the parents to be like, all right, either, we do schooling twice a week or online schooling and, all day long you're a hockey player. Or it's like, all right, we have to quit hockey because you're not going to be a professional player. They have to like make that determination at like 15, 16. That's very early. And as you know, there's so many stories of players at 16 and 15, players that in NHL right now and been to NHL who've been cut from junior teams, played in some, really bad leagues or really, not high level leagues. And that's why I wanted to start it because I wanted to give those kids an opportunity, not maybe high level kids that are going to be scouted by NHL teams, NHL scouts, big time agents, and they're going to just, pour money on them and develop them as a hockey player. I wanted to give an opportunity to those lower level, mid level players at the moment. I'm not saying that they're going to stay there. You never know. Because, in an example of myself, and obviously there are more examples, and I just always kind of, because it's relatable to the client that I have who speaks Russian or doesn't really speak great English or something, is my example. Because at the age of 17, when I came to US, like I was a skinny little kid, physically I developed late, and nobody knew me. Like I wasn't, really good hockey player. Like I had good hands and, good vision and stuff, but I wasn't physically really strong to play at a higher level. So at the time when I came here, US just, and because of the opportunity there, it wasn't even that big, but I was given opportunity. But now there's so many leagues, so many teams, even though maybe it's, the skill level, kind of watered down,
Yeah.
but it's an opportunity still to come here and show yourself. And there's so many universities. So I came here, and it gave me 2 years of prep school, 1 year of junior, and then 4 years of college, which is what is it now, 7 years of, developing my game, physically developing everything else to become a professional hockey player at the age of 24. And so now that's why I wanted to give the same opportunity for players who are still developing. I see them play, like I watch them play, and then I'm like, hey, you got something here. We can get you here. Let's work on your English, this. That's why I created it. I wanted to have that opportunity to share my experience and tell them, listen, hockey can be done at any moment in your life.
Yeah.
It's great if it's done at 40 when you're, NHL player and you retire at 40 with, great financial security and everything else. But it could be over at 18, could be over at 19, could be over at 21. You never know. Then what do you do after that? So it's a very difficult transition. And, with my experience transition from pro hockey into real world, that's what I call it because I feel like hockey is not a real world when you play pro. That's what I wanted, kind of that's my message here. Get the education, you can use it later, or maybe and I've seen it in person where people come play East Coast after graduating from Princeton and they're like, you know what, I'd rather go work. And they use their diploma, use what specialty, whatever they were learning in college, whatever degree they got, they go and, just start working and have an opportunity. So this is why, it's to give an opportunity and, obviously give back my experience and share my experience and knowledge with them, with kids who don't have the opportunity there. Plenty of opportunity here, there, lack of opportunity. So that's what I want to do. I want to give them an opportunity.
Yeah, I really appreciate that and love that. I mean, I think are aware if they've listened to other episodes know that I was born here, but from two immigrant parents, and they came for better opportunity to America. And part of my story to tie to this is I mean, that coach Jack Sweeney was like, you should stay another year. Those advisors, we'll call them, were saying, hey, you should stay another year. Schools like Yale like you, but you have to get your scores up. At the time, I was thinking like, not like 17, 18. I'm like, my scores aren't getting higher. I don't have the aptitude on these like standardized tests or the ability to focus. And like, that's
Hmm.
great. But I also didn't know, like, are they saying this to say it or are they saying this in earnest? Because I had never spoken to Yale as a, for example. But the key for me was like, my parents didn't go to college. No one in my family went to college. And my parents had said, if you don't go to college right away, we will never help you in your life ever.
Hmm.
So it's one of those like risk reward decisions of what do I do? And I didn't go
Yeah.
into such deep analysis as I might today as a 38-year-old 20 years later, though I thought, I'm not taking that bet or I'm not taking that chance. Like I
Hmm.
would like to honor my parents in that way and focus on the education. And then into Hobart, Coach Taylor understood too, like, hey, I'm coming here to be a student athlete with the academic program and education is super important. So even my visit there was very different than every other, I guess you could say, recruit or prospect. And it was kind of an easy decision for me when, I didn't play freshman year, sophomore year wasn't playing. And I was thinking like, what am I doing? I came to college for the full experience. I need to think about my life after this and somehow made the decision. At the same time, if I had somebody like you in my when I was that age, kind of like guiding me, not necessarily telling me do this, now do this, but helping to explain how does this work? How do you think about this, right? Somebody to talk to as like a coach, who knows where I would be. Now, last thing I'll say on that is I'm not questioning it because I have this belief that things do happen for a reason. The journeys that we go on happen for very specific reasons. We can't necessarily question our decisions in hindsight. We should make the best of the situation and then try to help others, right? So I really love and appreciate what you say about like you want to help those student athletes or potential student athletes have the opportunity so they can get like a taste of what you did and then not have to go through some of the bumps along the way. So it's like a better process for them, which at the end of the day is helping people.
Yeah, it's what it is, and it feels awesome when you hear, I told you this story
Yeah.
before when I got one of the kids. Well, it was one of my first clients that got a scholarship in very nice prep school, very good prep school. And I think the ticket was there like 65 grand. And he got in for like 11 grand. And you could hear like his mom scream in the background when I told him that they got the scholarship, they got the financial aid. That was awesome to hear, obviously, you know, happy for the kid and the family, but also obviously it's rewarding to hear that you helped them. That you got there, you helped them get to the point where they really wanted to get. And obviously from there, it's like you said, it's more of guidance and kind of experience you can share, and you give them advice, you can tell them, you can share information, but eventually it's their decision what they want to do. But yeah, that's how I got here. Now I've been doing it what 5 years, started with one client, growing, and now it's 25 and growing a little by little. And I enjoy it. I enjoy it. In the morning already watching a few games of my clients playing U18 and some juniors. So, but I like it.
Yeah, and it's not just hockey. You spoke when we were training the other day. You said that it's the focus is hockey because that's your background, but it's the intention is to help athletes from all sorts of sports because it's about again that core value of helping them realize the dream of the student athlete and have that opportunity for we'll just call it a better life for lack of a better term as well. So appreciate that. Let's talk about resources and data. I mean, we have to talk about data on these
Hmm.
episodes because it's data in sports. And as we know, data could be very quantitative. It could be fitness testing on the ice or on the court or on the pitch or on the field. It could be off ice, like in the gym in terms of reps. It could be as advanced as it's today at like, and I'm sure at prep schools too, and high schools, force plates. Like, what is the
Hmm.
force that you're generating? I'm sure some of these schools even have like we had Jesse on, who's now at 1080 Motion. Like, they probably have like that equipment, which is pretty high tech that like all the NHL teams use. So when you and I were playing, there was like, and even like trainers too. There was like nothing. It was like Mike Boyle, Body by Boyle in this area. You didn't have the amount of these like performance coaches. I don't think that term even existed. You had like the puck masters training facilities here and there, which were quite expensive. You didn't really have a lot of video analysis. Never mind like artificial intelligence using computer vision to like analyze your tape. So let's talk about today first. Like when you just kind of alluded to it watching tape. So when you speak with your athletes, right? What is kind of the data that you go over with them? Is it stats? Is it reviewing their video, some more qualitative? Give us a sense of some of the different components so that you can help give them like reinforcement or feedback in terms of their game or how to improve their game.
Well, first of all, it's a mindset because a lot of the kids, especially the ones I work with, they are all about stats. They're like, "Oh, I didn't score." Like I had a client defenseman, yesterday. He's like, "Oh, I thought I could do better." And my question, "All right, what do you think you could do better?" Because it's good to reflect. He's like, "Oh, I didn't score a goal." I'm like, "You're D. Like, it's not a priority." So the most important thing is the stats doesn't give you the full picture. Like you could have 60 games and have 90 points, but it's what's in the game. And that's how also my process is before even signing a contract with the family and a player. First is the interview. Like I interview the player, I see his English level, I interview, what his goals, aspirations, what is he doing now, things, and the same with the family. Also because, we want to align in terms of, what kind of goals we're going to set, what do they think, what level he's on or she's on. And then the other thing is obviously I watch the game. So after that, I ask them to send me some tapes and I watch and then I give them my vision of, where he's at, what he needs or she, and then what do we see 3 years from now. And so the tape is very important. I posted, recently, like you have to be a student of the game and everyone's talking about it, not just me, that you have to learn the little details because they can separate you. Even if you're not a 2 point per game guy, little details, what you do in D zone, what you do in the neutral zone, what you do in offensive zone, they separate you as a player and they can help you. And a lot of coaches right now, for them, the most important is, yes, skill is important, but for a lot of scouts, it's like a third important thing on down the line. The first one is your effort. How much effort you give every shift, not every shift. So a lot of those things. So it's for me, it's looking at the tape and kind of talking to my clients, what could you have done here? What do you see here? And then help them kind of, get there with their mind and understand what's going on. And then work with them and set up goals. All right, what are we going to work on for the next game or next week? What can we do? And the other thing is coachability. Obviously, you want to see your player implement those things that we talk about. And then from there, obviously, you kind of see, all right, is it going to take longer, the adjustment, and how quickly the adjustment happens. So yes, the most important is what I do is look at the game tape. I think it's very important. And then the other thing, obviously, is mental work in terms of preparation, because a lot of clients, their just mindset is totally different in preparation for the games, preparation for practices. Like right now, it's so highly competitive. All the data, all the videos they see, and social, like they can actually follow some of these high-end athletes and see how they prepare for the games. And a lot of players follow that, and that's great to have that access to, those, social medias and videos and platforms that they can see how people are preparing. Then obviously there's so many coaches now online. You can get personalized training online with videos how to do exercise. You and I, we didn't have that. So I think you have to utilize it now because so many other players do it, and you have to do more than other players, to actually advance, and so much more. For you and I at the time, I think it was, if we could do just a little bit, if maybe you and I had like a personal trainer,
Yeah.
which a lot of players have it right now, you and I could have been standing out because we had a personal trainer, because no one had it at the time, probably only professionals. So, but now these guys they have to have that, they have to have the right diet, all of that. It's all about the discipline as well.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that you said personal trainer. So again, it's like in Massachusetts, maybe even New England, you have like Mike Boyle, and like he's on social media. He's still going. This guy is
Yes, he is.
Mike is a legend and probably inspired so many other practitioners. I mean, you have like the Mike Barbises of the world who is doing performance for the Red Wings and the Ducks, but also has like a multi-location center, I think, down in Florida, training all various athletes. I think Gary Roberts has something up in Toronto that's now
Yeah, in
gotten,
Canada, yeah.
yeah, and that's gotten very large. But the point that I wanted to come back to, you said diet. So I've even seen you have these licensed nutritionists or dietitians who are specific to young athletes. Like some of these athletes even have proper nutritionists, which, as we
Yeah.
know, you have to fuel your body the right way based on what you need to show up ready. You can't just have like your good close friend, the Subway sandwich walking onto the airplane and like bag of chips. I mean, not everybody is
Not everyone can do it,
no.
yes, and drink cokes between periods, yes. And like, yeah, it comes down to now this information, and all of these coaches and people who help with diet, it's available very easily,
Yeah.
and so many players do that. So now they, like I said, to actually, and they get better because they use that. They become better athletes. And then, my clients come, and a lot of them, they do have it there. Maybe it's not as much, maybe different cities and stuff like that. When they come here, that's what I gotta get them on right away and get their mindset. Sometimes it's, they get to it quicker, some don't, but you need to have that because everyone else has that, and you have to be at that level. You have to be better to stand out. And it's very, very competitive right now in that terms.
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, two things to tie to the prior episode with Jesse Green, who I already mentioned, and actually the episode right after this with Joey Kang from Riser and Tread. So I said to Jesse at the end, like, I have to ask. Like, I have to ask this question because he's the director of sports performance and sports science for the Pittsburgh Penguins for, I believe, 3 seasons. So I said, I'm not going to, something along the lines of like, I'm not going to ask you what does Sidney Crosby do, or what does Evgeny Malkin do, or what does Chris Letang do, but to help us understand so that other athletes, especially hockey players who want to become like the elite of the elite, like what are those types of players doing? And he was also in the NBA with Sacramento Kings. So you have like De'Aaron Foxes. Like how can you distill it down to anything? And he said, yes, kind of two things. And I'm paraphrasing. So two things. One, those top of the top athletes, they ask you why. When you talk them through a program, when you talk them through interventions of, hey, we're going to do this, when you talk them through diet, they ask why, not to question you, right?
Hmm.
I mean, and people know I don't have kids, kind of like my nephew Felix, Matthew, my brother's 2.5-year-old. Felix was asking, why? Why do I have to do this? Why? And it's the cutest thing. But in this context, like the top athletes are asking why because they want to understand so that they can program their mindset and thinking of like this is very important, right? And then he said, so that's kind of where they start. So it ties to what you said with mindset. And just as the adjacent to this, that's what I'm going to be talking about with Joey Kang in the next episode is he's a clinician in terms of like mental performance, mental health, about young athletes, and what do the athletes need to pay attention to between the ears, right? The mindsets. That's going to be a great episode too. But he said that so they have that mindset of asking why, and then they stack habits. They do the basics and the foundational work, the very boring thing that I know I didn't want to do when I was in junior and in college because I thought I knew everything. They do the
Yep.
basics, but they don't just do, like he said, recovery and then focus on nutrition and then weightlifting. They do it all. They stack it on top of each other and they're very meticulous about it. So when you said like with when you talk to your clients and their families and you share like what is your vision, what's the outcome, you're helping them get into that mindset of like I need to think about what I want. Like what is my destination and where am I going to? And once we have clarity there, my hypothesis would be, or my thinking is, it's then easier to understand the steps along the way and why they have to do those things. Because it's like if you want to get there, those are the steps along the way, and there's table stakes, right? It's just like it's not a discussion.
Yes, it comes down. I mean, number one is the discipline. It's the discipline to do those, like you said, most basic and boring things every single day, like the preparation, the food, what time you go to bed, how do you wake up, the phone use, how do you prepare for the game. I mean, obviously there are different variables out there, and like I tell my clients to do it, to start a diary. That way they reflect on what are they doing before like the day before the game. I tell them, all right, write down what you eat, when you eat, how much you eat, what time you go to bed, what do you do before the bed, and then after the game, and then the day of the game, same thing, all day long. Just reflect. You don't have to write down, like, I mean, you can use notes in your phone. Obviously, everything's digital. And then after the game, you reflect. You actually how you felt, tired, not tired, legs heavy, not heavy. So all of those things reflect. And then if you loved it, you performed. Okay, look back what you did and then be disciplined about it and diligent about it. Like repeat that. If your game's at 7, you go back to your notes and be like, all right, what did I do the day before when my game's at 7? I didn't do that, but I like now I realize like I should have done that. I should have better professional preparation for my college games, for my junior games, stuff like that. It only happened for me when I was playing professional. And so it comes down to discipline, paying attention to details. And like I said, like stacking is the why. And then the other thing is I ask them all the time, my clients, what have you done this week? Especially when some client, a client texts me or calls me, is like, hey, I didn't play in a power play. It happens. It happens to everyone. It happened to me. I'm not saying that, it's not a good, obviously, mentality to have that. Like I didn't play. Why? And my response is always, well, what have you done to get that opportunity? What have you done on ice? Have you spoken to coach, asking him, what do you need to do? Like, have you reached out to me? So my philosophy here is I'm there available for them to do video anytime they want. Like send me, talk to me, text me, be like, hey, we just played. I would like to watch the game. We scheduled. That's what I do. I don't have these like packages where it's like only 4, games a
Yeah,
month or something like that. Like if you need to watch 2 games a week, let's do it.
right.
I'm all for that. But my philosophy, you need to take the first step. I'm not the parent. I'm not going to be like, hey, unless I see something on the video where it's like, all right, it's going terribly, there's no game through game. Like I still watch the games, but there's no improvement and it's the same mistakes every time and they're not being corrected.
Yep.
That means something's wrong. So that's when I step in and I was like, all right, we need to sit down and we need to watch. Like it's, like panic button almost. But I tell them you need to get off the couch and do something about like, be diligent about your development. Ask for help, ask questions, ask the coaches, ask training. If you don't have a strength conditioning coach, we can get you that. It's easy. Like I said, it's so available now. It's not like back in the days. But the first thing you have to do something about it. You have to set the goals. You have to set the steps to that goal. You have to do something about it.
Yeah, I love that for so many reasons. And you mentioned the communication with the coaches. This is something that I was terrible at
Oh, yeah.
because I was the young, quiet, I was the kid, and everybody thought I was this shy kid, pretty introverted. now maybe a little bit different, more like ambivert, somewhere in the middle. But even like I've been now reflecting as you were saying that through my professional career, the times that like I didn't go talk to my manager or the big boss and didn't communicate to not again like ask why to be a pest, but to understand what are the things that I need to be doing or that I'm not doing and say like here's how I think about it. And I believe in sports today at many levels, in many sports, there might be more of like a two-way relationship between player and coach. I mean, of course, it goes without saying, every coach is different, every system is different, every team is different. Though generally speaking, it seems like there's more open communication and feedback. And I believe that in terms of helping your own development, that is too like asking the question of like, and again, it's a self reflection, but asking the coach of like, here's how I see it. What are my blind spots? Because if the coach sees it differently, as we know, like, comes down to what the coach is saying, if you're playing or not.
Yes, it comes down obviously open. Every coach is different, but it comes down to your mindset, the player's mindset. How do you communicate it with like same thing that I just said? You don't go there and say, why am I not playing on power play? Like, why didn't you put me on that? Like, it has to be different delivery. Yes,
Yeah.
that's where you're wondering, but it has to be different because right away, the coach, the other person on the other line gets defensive, like why? That's what I teach a lot of guys. And I grew up in a country where like coaches were not approachable. And I'm not saying everyone is still the same, but a lot of my clients that I talk to and talk about, relationship with your coach and how to speak with your coach, they 99% of them still agree that it's like a no-no. Like can't look at a coach, like you asking him a question, like it's like very, touchy subject. And so I have to teach him. That's part of my job too, is that work is I have to teach him how properly, approach a coach, speak to a coach about your game, learn from the coach, do something as well. And like I tell him, and it cannot be like you went there, spoke to him, you did something, you played well, and then next week you're just back to where you started, kind of like, oh, for, 1 week it worked. So it's like you said, the elites of the league, they do it every single day, the discipline. So it's a very important aspect, obviously, yeah, of growing up and being an athlete is talking to him. I wasn't that great either. I had a lot of different conversations and stuff, but yeah, I wasn't great either. It's just now it's more of like me looking back
Yeah.
and kind of relearning everything. It's just like, I had so many mistakes. So many things I could have done differently, but it's, you just kind of live and learn, I guess. Obviously, we can't change anything now, but it's, I can just share my experience. That's why we'll go to the beginning of the conversation. That's why I started this business to share that experience so kids can learn and do things better than I did.
Which is why you're a great guest to have on these episodes of Data in Sports, because I think people are finding, if they're following along, yes, there is so much data that from the performance side that can be tracked and can be used. Like there's also the business side, there's like the investment ownership side. So we haven't touched so much on those topics in episodes yet, just because like the types of guests I've spoken to, though everything and every conversation is almost the same thing. Like mindset matters, attitude matters, communication matters. It's all the intangibles, which is still, it's just still data. It's just sometimes harder to measure because it's not, okay, how many bench reps did you do? What was a 40 time? How many goals did you score? What was your ice time? Those sorts of things. And from my perspective, just in sport in general, is even though I love data, I'm a data guy through and through, probably will never leave data industry. I believe there's like too much data, especially at the, we'll call it younger levels, like developmental level, youth level, junior level, sometimes even college, because the kids get wrapped so much in the numbers. Like you said, like I didn't score a goal today. And I'm going to tie this to just really briefly conversation I had with one of our former teammates, Matt G. Is
You
he?
can drop his name. It's okay.
I think I've mentioned Matt Gilroy too many times in too many episodes. I think there was like back to back because I had like I had talked to him like a couple times, and some of the things that he was saying to me, because he's coaching at Harvard, like so resonated, right? And what he was explaining to me in very short terms was, so he coaches the defense there, right? And at the U.S. national development team, I think U16 a couple years ago, similarly. And he tells like the players the same thing, like you're not going to score every game. Like if you can, as a defenseman, keep the puck out of your zone, out of your net, you can have a very long NHL career. Like there's these, I guess, air quotes, boring NHL defensemen that people are like, oh, he's not flashy, right? But they have very long careers, very successful careers, make a lot of money. And, but again, it's like the parents will say, well, my kid's like first line power play. And I thought, like, that's very interesting. My mom didn't talk that way. She was more hard on me coming from Poland. Like, she's like, "You're not good enough." But the point is, like, and he had shared this. He's like, I say to them something along, and these are my words, not Matt's. Something along the lines of like, there aren't even like 32 top like left shot power play defensemen in the NHL because, like, for example, Toronto, which is hypothetically, doesn't even use defensemen. It's five forwards. So just think about it from that math perspective. And again, he's like, he's similar to you in terms of, as far as I see it, wants to help the developing athlete who wants to be the elite, like, again, learn from his experiences. And that's a true, I think, part of life, like you said, is like, you want to leave it better than how you left it. You want to help people. And that's part of what these episodes too is. I chime in from my own experience and my own perspective to help kind of reinforce the point of, like, no one's perfect. Don't beat yourself up on your mistakes. Like, just help others.
But it also comes down to data, whereas like, well, how many of those like skill guys, let's say, who are getting, point per game and whatnot, ended up being on the first two lines or a first line in NHL?
Yep.
There's 32 teams, and there's like, let's say, top six. There you go, count. And that's how many in the world. So look at the data. Like, was it 1% makes the NHL, but then to the top two lines where it's all about skill. So that's why, like, when I speak to you guys, I'm like, listen, this is some of the things that you're missing, like, and even going to my experience, like I remember I wasn't I didn't have the best attitude, that's for sure. And I look at it, and sometimes I would see some guys like get called up to American Hockey League and stay there, for their whole career. And I was like, why? I was like, why? Well, because they had the whole arsenal of things that they do, and they can play anywhere in the lineup. You know what I mean? And that's why a lot of these, less skilled players make it to like NHL and higher levels because they do so many more different things that a team can use.
Yeah, more
You know,
versatile. I was late.
exactly.
I was late to our calendar timing for this because I was listening to the hockey show on 98.5 here, the sports radio in Boston. And that's what they were talking to is, what are the probably third and fourth lines going to look like for the Bruins? And part of the discussion was, well, it depends. Like, what does the head coach, Marco Sturm, want from the third line? What does he want from the fourth line? And based on his philosophy for the team, that will help like slot in the right player in the right position, right? And the more they were
Exactly.
saying, well, like this guy, I forget who they're mentioning, he could play, second through fourth line. It really depends. What does the coach want, and what's again the philosophy of the organization? So, and that's a piece of advice too. Is, I mean, there's always this discussion or even debate, and it's now getting younger and younger about even just sport specialization, right? And we know there, I think the science shows from like Football Science Institute for like football, so globally football, soccer, America, that if you specialize in that sport too early, you will develop more hamstring issues in the future because you're not rounded out physically, right? But in this case, we're talking about specific sports specialization. And again, it's like, I am, U16 or U18. I'm going to be left shot defenseman on PP1, power play one, and you're specialized there. Whereas perhaps your path, like if you had crystal ball, like that player to get to the NHL is like actually third pairing D, but you're gonna have like an 8-year career or 10-year career and win a couple cups potentially because you're gonna fit into a team that needs it. So I think that's a nice piece of advice in general, is like, understand the system that you're in and
Hmm.
develop like the tools, right? The set of tools to play anywhere in the lineup so that you can fit in more places. Because like you said, it's literally math when we break it down.
Yeah. And it's the different tools in your toolbox. What do you can you add to there? Like, like I have a couple of clients who are centerman and I was a centerman. And before I got to college, like my faces were like, but then one of my coaches there in Norwich, Corey, he played, I think, actually at Princeton. And it's horrible on me. I forgot his last name, but he was the one. He was like started working with me in college on my face-offs. He's like, "How about we move your hand a little bit lower, this one a little bit lower? How about you put your feet a little bit wider, like, and all of that stuff." And from there, like, took pride in those little things. And then you can see, and I tell my clients, I have a bunch of clients who are sentiment, and you can just see they go in the face and they want to do is just win it clean, like try to be this like slick guy, like just like taps it and wins it. And I'm like, dude, like this can separate you, like scouts are and coaches are looking into this, like if you're missing some part of your game, like let's say you're not as fast enough to be in USHL or Division One. But what can get you there actually is those little things that you can do great. Like you look at you and you say you have like 60 or 70%, percentage winning faceoffs. This is great because they're going to trust you in all these important situations where it's like 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 1 minute where you need to win the face off and, clear the puck or something, important little things. And, those little things. And I think like that's what I tell the guys, and hopefully they learn from it. And I want to share that experience with it. And that's where we're saying again, getting to that top level, you need those as many tools as you can in your toolbox because there's so many players now that can do a lot of different things now. As you can see, like even fourth liners, you don't have those. Even when I like, what is it like? In my college is like 2004. Even when you go there, and there's some of the really tough guys, like like fighters out there, but they can still like tape passes are tape to tape. Everything's hard. It's good. Yeah, they might not be the best skaters and everything, but they still do a lot of things. Now, as you look at it, everyone can skate. Everyone
Yeah.
can stick handle. Like I used to have good hands, and at the time when I was playing, my hands were probably above average. Even like when I played in Hershey, the coaches was loving my hands, and I could do different things. But then now, when you look at kids, what they can do, I'm like at the bottom. What I could have done back when I
It's
was playing.
unreal.
So
Yeah, it is like
so skill is
unreal.
way much more, and so you need as many tools as you can in your game toolbox for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the coach might have been Corey Gustafson,
Yes, Corey
who
Gustafson. That's right.
played at Harvard. So two
Harvard.
two
There you
two
go.
two
To
Harvard
Harvard goes.
shutouts, two Harvard
Yeah, you played at
shutouts
Harvard.
today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was.
I looked it up
Yeah, he was great. What I liked about it, he pushed me like with Coach McShane and Corey, they both pushed me. Like he gave me some pushback on the things that I did in terms of my attitude, sometimes, breaking stick over the, over the boards or something. I wasn't happy. I remember Coach McShane benched me for a couple of games for that. All of those, like, it's part of obviously your development, mental development. Those are very important. But yeah, I definitely remember him working with me on faces, and you know, thanks to him, yeah, that helped me a lot. And I wasn't saying I was, real. I was pretty good at the face. I was like, and so it's important development
for
for me.
sure. So before we go behind the data, you've given a lot of advice and recommendations to athletes, again, based on your experience. Though I did want to ask you, is there like one major takeaway that they should have in terms of enhancing their development? It could be the mindset, it could be develop the tools, it could be the communication, it could be like the journal and understanding your goals. Like, is there one like highlight of advice that you'd want to leave people with?
I think the details, those little details, they matter. And everything that you said, and if you just take, from each part of what you said, the mental, the discipline, if you take a little by little of everything and stay disciplined to it, I think that's going to help you develop. And the most important is, and everyone says that, obviously, I'm not, anything new, is to be the student, like learn a game, not the highlights. That's one thing. Like, stop watching the highlight real goals and everything like that. That doesn't happen. Just watch and study players in your position. Even like Wayne Gretzky said, he used to sit down. He used to sit down and watch the game. He used to track where the puck was. That's what he said. He used to sit down in front of the game, TV, and just he would take a pen and he would just draw Like he would just draw where the puck, and then you just look at it and see where the puck, was the most and what the positions were, to score goals. And, he wasn't the biggest guy out there. Yeah, he was a great skater, but that's what he did when he was little and just kind of learned that way. And so now with all the data and all the games available to you and everything, you can just watch games, and those little details, you can watch what those players are doing. Just add those tools to your toolbox. Don't just be one way player.
For sure. Thanks for that. Definitely with the amount with technology, the amount of game tape that exists on these different players, and then like you said, the behind the scenes on social media in terms of what they're doing, that will help people get a lot of insight in terms of at least a peek into what those elite of the elite are doing, and should help them along the way. Okay, let's have some more fun and finish up with behind the data to get a sense more of Nikita, the person behind sports. I'm going to ask you 4 questions that I ask everybody. Starting with this one, is there a place or a location that's near to you in terms of like close to your heart or very special to you? And if you want to answer why,
Special, I mean, where I was born, Moscow, love the city. Obviously, it's home. I was born there. I'm in New York now. I love New York. It's a great city too. But yeah, definitely, Moscow and start traveling a little bit more. And I'm in love with Italy as well. So those two spots, very close.
answers, and there's no place like home for sure. Is there a food that could be from a restaurant or that's homemade, that's a comfort food for you, or one that you just really can appreciate? Or you can go back to your playing days and share like what your pregame meal was.
What I prefer, I mean, home cooked meals are the best always because you know what's in there, how it's prepared for sure. In terms of pre-game meal, yeah, it was always a lot of pasta and, chicken breast. That was the pre-game meal. In terms of restaurants, when I go to restaurant, I prefer going to restaurants, the food that I can't or my wife can't cook at home. So will be like Thai food, Chinese, maybe Indian. I love trying different types of food and spicy food. I love.
Yeah, same. It's like I think the worst when you go somewhere and you think like I can do this so much better. So
Yeah,
you
you go
go,
for different vibes. Yeah, you go for different things. Either it's the food or the vibe. And so like my preference, I like food. Yeah, like I'm a foodie for sure, and New York is a great spot for that. And so I like trying different things. But yeah, my favorite to the restaurants like would be like Thai, Chinese, Indian, Szechuan food. That's a very spicy one. Yeah,
nice. Love that. Now, last two. Is there a song that puts you in a good mood or gets you pumped up or just gets you excited? Is there anyone that comes to mind that you'd want to share?
Pump, I would say, it's an interesting one. It's Hans Zimmer, No Time for Caution. Do you know that one? So it's from a movie Interstellar. So Hans Zimmer is a composer,
But
and
yeah, I
so
know this.
it's the moment where his spaceship is spinning and he needs to get like so the main character there needs to start spinning his own ship so they can connect, do the docking. So that's the melody out there that gets you going, and it's like
Nice.
perfect for my theme of life right now. It's no time for caution,
I love
like
it.
that's you don't overthink things, just do, no time for caution. And that's a good one. That'll get me going. Like it starts very slow, but then it's like you get going. The main theme for Sopranos is very good, especially in the morning. You like woke up this morning, that one gets you going. Always in a good mood, I think, is M83 Midnight City, remix by Eric Prydz. That's a good one for me too.
I have to check that one out because
Some
I like,
oldies.
yeah, I like Eric Prydz a lot. I saw that I think Call on Me turned like 18 or 21 the other day. I was like, holy smokes.
I like Pajano more
Yes, yes.
than Call on Me. That one is pretty good.
I'd
It
agree.
more of the new winners is probably like Travis Scott, Skywalker. That's pretty good pump
Okay.
up for me.
Nice. We have a full range from you. Definitely a music person. Some people will say they're not music people, which is okay. Clearly, you have a wide catalog. So let's wrap with this book. So, is there a book that you've read the last year or two that has had an impact on you or taught you a lesson that you would want other people to check out?
I wouldn't say less. Some of the books that helped me, like in past few years, I definitely started reading much more. I think I lacked that when I was playing hockey, putting too much time into it definitely. So now when I catch up, I really have actually a desire to read, all different sorts like novels. So I do different things, novels, self-improvement books. Terms of self-improvement, I mean, Ryan Holiday books are really good, like Obstacles the Way, Daily Stoic. Those are very nice. That some of the things that I start reading now is Douglas Stone, like Difficult Conversations. That's very important right now. It kind of teaches you, talking to anyone, friends, family, especially clients, maybe too. The ones from like I love true stories, like Phil Knight's Shoe Dog is great.
Very good book. Yes.
Yes. Awesome. How you build a business. I mean, that's relatable. You're building a business, so that's very relatable. Bill Browder, Red Notice. That's a true story about this investor that was investing in Russia in like Cold War times, in the 90s, where nobody in US or in the world was really investing in Russia, and that's a big like story out there. It's very interesting, gripping story. Yeah. Great one for everyone. I think I recommend for everyone, and I'm reading it now too, is obviously James Clear, Atomic Habits. I think every athlete should read that. It's the habits everyday discipline, like we talked about. You have to read that. I think, every athlete needs to read that. And in terms of novels, the big one recently that I read was Donna Tartt, The Goldfinch.
Haven't heard of that.
It's a Pulitzer winner. So you read that.
You're,
It's a
you're,
good,
gi- you're
good
you're giving me a long list of books to read, Nick, because I think I've read one of those,
one.
which is curious because generally I'll have been like aware of the book, but this is
Yeah.
good. This is good because it's sharing and learning and opening up people to perhaps different perspective or different things to check out and to see again how do they help themselves. So I'm gonna add all of those in like the notes
Okay.
for people to check out. I think, not to give you a hard time, if we keep going, you're going to give us a full library. And we want to save some of that. We want
Yeah.
to save some of that for a future episode. Let's save some of that for a future episode.
Okay. All right. And now I'm actually also the last one. I'm reading my wife's book, and I love that. It's the longevity, book through physical activity. That 15 minutes I told you about. That's great. I mean, I love that because right now it's everyone busy right now. Everyone has got something to do, and not a lot of people have time to work out. But her book about just 15 minutes a day, the exercise, they're important for your mental clarity, your physical activity, how you feel. That's a good one for me, especially.
I'm with you. I have it in the list. Also, check out the podcast, which is on
Yes.
Spotify and now Apple. So I am able to listen to it. And what I like about this 15 minutes, and so I go through, I don't think I've mentioned this yet on any episode. Since February, like Tony Robbins, I have a coach through Tony Robbins' coaching program. And so some people are like, all you do now is like quote Tony Robbins with everything. And I'm like, it just resonates with me now. It's not most of it's not his own original ideas. And he states that he just packages it in a specific way, but he calls these sorts of things net time, NET. So no extra time. So it's like people will say, and they'll tell me like, I don't have time to work out during the day. I'm like, okay, you're having a cup of coffee. What are you doing when you're having a cup of coffee? Just sitting there. You could pump out 10 push-ups or 50 push-ups or whatever it is. Or like
Mm-hmm.
between Zoom calls, you could do like 25 body squats, or like before you go to bed, like you can get a stretch in, or like you can like, some Zoom calls could be done. Like if it was, say, you and I on a Zoom, I could walk around the block a couple of times here in Dorchester, like instead of just standing here in my office the whole day. And that's what I love is like 15 minutes is very attainable, I think, for people. And it's like what we talked about before, the stack and the habits. If you do the seemingly boring over and over and over and over and over, it builds a very nice foundation for us for the future. So that's why I really appreciate the work your wife is doing too, because one, it resonates with me. And then two, it like ties to what we've talked about here today and with other guests about like, this is what like the elite athletes are doing from a performance perspective. And then even like the elite, if you think about any career in any field, they're doing those little things. They're not making the excuses. They have the mindset. So I think we should say that actually we'll come back on another episode to discuss this further. But Nikita, Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate it. I'm not just saying this to be hyperbolic. The time literally flew by.
Yeah, I know it's been an hour, but yeah, I feel like we can talk and talk about all the different things and stuff. But hey man, I appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate you having me on, and good luck to you with everything that you're doing right now, man. There's some exciting stuff you told me about. I'm looked into it. I love it. It's same thing. It goes into the data and things you can learn about yourself, about your body that can help you get to that highest level. And I think that's what it came down to is what kind of advantage and what kind of data and some kind of way that you can give yourself an advantage over another athlete. It's very interesting. And everyone, not just athletes, but I just like what kind of thing can you do to get yourself there.
100%. The data is the way. So thanks for taking
Yeah.
the time, and we'll talk soon.
All right, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.